In this video, I want to look at some of the plurals of Greek nouns. And we'll start with the nominative. If we have time, we might also look in some other cases. And to do that, I'm going to use an exercise, some examples from an exercise in a Duca play. If you want, as we do the exercise, you might pause the video and see if you got the right answer. So, του Κώστα δεν είναι σπίτι. So here the correct answer would be B, φίλοι. But how would I get to this conclusion? I mean, there are two things I have to know here. One is which case I need, and the second thing would be what is the appropriate ending for this word. So let's start with the case. There is a really obvious thing to look at here, which is the article. Okay, since I have the article E here, yeah, E in Greek is nominative, either masculine or feminine. Another way to look at this phrase would be to look at what is the role of the syntactic role of the word φίλοι in this phrase. It would be the subject, so again I need nominative. Now when looking at what ending I have to use here, I have to consider which group this word belongs to. So I have philos ending in os, yeah, philos, like many adjectives, σωστός, ψηλός, καλός, okay, and also there are many nouns, δρόμος, what else, λόγος, ήχος, there are many words. These words form the nominative plural in omicron iota, so it would be ο δρόμος, οι δρόμοι. One thing I want to mention here quickly is that if you have a feminine word with the same ending, it follows the same rule. So for instance, ioudos becomes iodi, again the same ending. Okay, so by this logic, I choose φίλοι here. Now, next one, again a masculine word. Again, if you want, you can pause the video. What would be the subject here? Sorry, not the subject. What would be the correct word here? So, well, what I said before was accidentally misleading. We're not looking for a subject, we're looking for an object. He has something. That would be the object. Okay, my neighbor has something. This something is the object. So I'm looking at the accusative here. And what group of word do we have? A masculine word in us. Masculine words in us and in is follow the same rule in the plural. So for instance, ολογίας, okay, us becomes υλογίες. Okay, ο σωσίας, ή σωσίες, and just to have one word in is ο μαθητής, οι μαθητές. And the accusative would be the same but with a different ending. So it would be τους λογίες, τους σωσίες, τους μαθητές. Okay. So again, by this logic I choose αναπτήρες. So the next one. Okay, η Άννα και η Σοφία είναι, now have a feminine word. Since I have the verb to be here, I'm not really talking about an object. This is something that confuses many people, but with verbs like to be, to appear, είμαι, φαίνομαι, δείχνω, etc. Νιώθω. I have a predicate, so it will be nominative. It doesn't really matter for feminine words because the only difference between nominative and accusative with feminine words is the article. So you cannot really see that here since the article is not included in the phrase. But keep this in mind. Now the correct answer here would be philes. What's wrong with the other ones? Philus, first of all, will be accusative, so you can just immediately rule it out. And masculine. Phili is nominative, which is the correct case, but it is masculine. We want the feminine version here. And the feminine version will be in S. Like, let me give you some more examples orally. Like, η Maria, η Maries. Η Sofia, οι Sophies. And one in Ita. Let me write this one to be clear. Η Pηγή, how will this go? Οι Πηγές. Okay. And the accusative will be the same but with a different article. Τις Πηγές, τις Μαρίες, τις Sophies. You can also be written with an uppercase this one, depending if it's a name or a noun. Τις Sophies, etc. etc. Φίλες λοιπόν. Okay, here another one. Αυτός ο ποδοσφαιριστής παίζει σε πολλές. Okay, now we're going to break the rule we talked about just a minute ago. So the ending here will be thesis is. Feminine word, again accusative because I have the preposition se. Most prepositions in Greek go with the accusative. Now what's the rule here? Let me give you briefly the rule. The rule will be that if I have an S before the ending in a feminine word, the ending in nominative and accusative will be is, written this way, and not S. For instance, η θέση, η θέσεις, η μέση, how will this one go? Οι μέσεις. Well, actually, this sounds really funny, but yeah. Η κρίση, οι κρίσεις. Η πίστη, οι πίστης. Okay. There is one more word that doesn't have this S, but it's just an irregular word, and we use it a lot. It's η πόλη. Η πόλη, οι πόλεις. That's it. Thesis. And here we'll have just to close for today. We have an accusative, right? Because it would be έχει. Έχει requires an accusative. It's the object. So γιος της Μαρίας δεν έχει masculine word afterwards. Φίλων is not right, but I have in A because it's a genitive plural. Φίλοι is not right because it's the nominative plural. Φίλοι with omicron iota. And notice if together with ita, it will be the feminine word. So φίλοι with omicron iota is not right because it's the masculine nominative plural. And here I need the accusative after the verb έχω, which requires an object. So it will be φίλους. Ο γιος της Μαρίας δεν έχει φίλους. Notice that the words in nous, I think they are the only group. The words in nous have a different ending for nominative, genitive, accusative, and in the singular, even for the vocative, they have a different ending in most cases. Other nouns, for instance, words in us and in is, like naftis, nabis, etc., logias, do not do that because it is the genitive and the accusative are the same, and the nominative and the vocative. Let me illustrate this with an example. So, if I have ο δρόμος, I have one ending for the nominative, another one for the genitive, then I have another ending. Let me separate it with a dash so it is clear what I'm talking about, right? Okay. For the accusative, τον δρόμο, and finally my vocative will be δρόμε, So another different, 4 different endings. However, if I take the word logias, detergent, which I mentioned earlier, it could be all logias, and all the other cases will be the same. The difference will only be in the article. Tu logia, ton logia, and the vocative logia. Okay. So the only difference here is whether I have or don't have the S. Whereas dromos carries this word, basically this group of words, which are masculine and feminine words in os, carry more information by virtue of having a different ending in each case. So you don't need the article, you don't even need to understand their syntactical position in a phrase, you just look at the ending and you know what case they are. So that was kind of a very brief introduction to the plurals in nominative, and we also saw a lot of accusatives, and very often they are the same, just the article will be different. Let me just close here, choose here, finish. This is a topic usually I think people really start to manage correctly around B1, and because it's a bit difficult, actually I think my impression is even people in B2, people who are quite advanced learners and can maintain long conversations, have a good vocabulary, believe in English for many years, etc., even these people have difficulties with the case endings, especially the plural. Now, from this point, I just want to say something briefly about grammar when it comes to language learning. I mean, I've had a significant experience teaching people Greek. And what is my impression? When do people really start using the cases correctly? Let me start by the misconceptions here. One misconception comes from the school system because basically when you have children who go to school even at the age of 6, for the most part, they make mistakes, that's true, they still make mistakes, but for the most part, they already use the cases correctly. Okay, and this often gives people the false impression that the cases are something easy and something that should be learned early on. Because in a Greek school, this is very normal, it is done correctly, I'm not criticizing the system now, just saying how things are. With native speakers, of course, people first know the cases and maybe study them a bit at school, but I don't think most people really learn the cases, especially the basic stuff like the ones we looked at now at school. And then for many years they're working on things like spelling. And this gives you the wrong impression in the sense that for most learners as of Greek as a foreign language, learning the cases will come first in part of their educational project, and the formal education project it will take a lot of time. And spelling is something that you might even never do in your whole learning career of Greek. But if you do it, you should do it much later, much a lot of time after learning how to say, η γυναίκα, οι γυναίκες, ο άντρας, οι άντρες. The second thing here that causes this misconception, of course, is the way books are structured. Again, I'm not criticizing the books. The books just give you some material. But things like, the accusative case is introduced very, very early on in the learning process. I think I'm sure accusative singular is already in A1, and it's even pretty early in A1. It should be, I think it's in the first half of A1. And things like accusative plural and nominative plural, I'm pretty sure they are in A2. Okay, so what do I suggest? I'm not suggesting we should change the books or anything like that, but as a learner, how should you approach these things? Really, I think the stuff we looked at now, you shouldn't really worry about them. If you want to study them, that's fine, but if you shouldn't really worry about them until you really master the vocabulary. So basically, the stages I've seen with people learning Greek would be first, you get a grasp of the basic words like εδώ, εκεί, σήμερα, αύριο, πηγαίνω, έρχομαι, λέγομαι, είμαι, σπίτι, this kind of stuff. And people start noticing words as you speak. Maybe they can guess the topic of something you said. Maybe they can understand the full phrase, but they really struggle with anything beyond the very basics. Then people still cannot speak as they go on in the learning process, but say this in a kind of second phase, they have more vocabulary and are able to understand more things being told to them. Still quite basic things. Things like είμαι σπίτι, πηγαίνω στο σχολείο, πηγαίνω στη δουλειά, ο Κώστας είναι άρρωστος σήμερα, stuff like that. And people will still be very confused, if you have a really long phrase like ο Κώστας σήμερα δεν πήγε στη δουλειά γιατί η μητέρα του ανάρρωστη και πήγε στο νοσοκομείο. If you say this to somebody who is at this stage, just understanding basic phrases, he will be completely lost. And then only at the next level, people really start speaking a bit with some confidence, things like I'm going home, goodbye, see you later, but used properly in a kind of context, not like what people do. And I'm not criticizing that, I'm just saying that, people just learn some phrases and practice them, but, phrases come in naturally, even basic ones, in the flow of conversation. This should come later. And in none of these stages do you really need to master what we've done here. What we've done here, I think, would be very appropriate and very useful for people who can already really maintain a conversation in Greek. I mean, not a good necessarily conversation about, Plato and Aristotle or, the scholastic philosophy, but things like how much does it cost? If you're comfortable having a conversation like this, or, how do I go to the train station and, where can I buy a new pair of shoes, or, uh, are the fruit fresh or whatever. If you can have a conversation about these things or more advanced things than just very, very, very basic ones, then you can start looking at this. Okay, but really it's something that you shouldn't really worry too much at the early stage of learning. Okay, so that's all I have to say on this topic. I think it's an important and interesting topic, as long as people keep in sight that, vocabulary is really the king, especially at the early stages of language learning. Okay, see you later.